Are you planning on racing Ironman 70.3 La Quinta in California this year? Well, if so, this is going to be a great video for it because in it, I'm going to talk to a recent finisher from La Quinta and we're going to ask him all the questions that you might have about the swim, the bike, the run, and I'll throw in some coaching inside in terms of we'll chat about equipment, etc., and all that crack. So, who are we, and how we get it? How we're going to discuss this? So, my name is Coach Steve or Steve Moody. I am an Ironman U certified coach with over 20 years of experience in coaching and racing Ironman at 70.3 events. I'm also Triathlon Ireland Coach of the Year, but we don't like to boast about that. But more recently, I am a YouTuber who does these 70.3 and full distance reviews around the world. And so after I have did the reviews of all the races I've done, which is 12 fulls and around 10 halves around the world, I needed to kind of connect with my wider network of people who of race directors, other coaches I know, or even athletes that I know who have done the race, and we ask them all the questions you want to have find out. Is it wetsuit legal? Should it be a road bike? Da 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 da. So we use their experience for your benefit. And in it, I am delighted to have Sean O'Malley from the United States on the podcast for on the channel today to talk about La Quinta because he has experience of it. Sean, a little bit about yourself before we dive into some of the course details.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Steve. My name's Sean O'Malley. I'm a 26-year-old triathlete out of Los Angeles, California. This will be my second year racing in Ironman 70.3 La Quinta, last year being the first half distance triathlon I've done. Spent about 2 to 3 years before that doing sprint and Olympic distance. So hoping to give you the full first timer experience review, given last year was my first half distance triathlon at La Quinta.
Fantastic and brilliant. And thanks very much for sharing it because that lens of actually like going, oh wow, this is all new and all the things you would have absorbed like a sponge. Let's just tap into that. That'd be brilliant. Okay, so we'll
So
dive into the swim. If you excuse the pun, um, what can guys expect? And again, like it looks like it's a simple enough swim direction course, one lap, but in terms of water quality, was it wetsuit legal for you? Were there things swimming in the water, jellyfish, etc.? What's your kind of last what memories do you have of the swim course, and any hints and tips would you give for a nervous newbie?
yeah, the thing that stands out about the Quinta swim leg and the thing you'll see everyone talk about online and reading race plans and strategy is water temperature. It's a much colder race than a lot of the other ones on the circuit, given the time of year out in the desert. I believe the water temperature during our race was around the 54, 55 degree Fahrenheit mark. So definitely a colder race, wetsuit legal, maybe a little bit of a thicker wetsuit. I paired that with a thermal cap underneath my swim cap just to keep my head a little warmer. That was what the majority of the participants were wearing that day. Relatively straightforward swim. It's a lake, so it's fresh water, little to zero current. Like I said, colder water temperature. So in terms of a difficulty of swim as compared to something that might be in the ocean, probably a little bit easier. More of a battle against the elements with being cold out there in the morning. But you get into a groove after the first couple hundred meters of the swim, and then you kind of just tune out the cold water.
Did you have an opportunity to get in the water beforehand to acclimatize, or was it just was there any chance on that?
Yes, there is a section near the corrals where you can get in the water and acclimatize ahead of time. That was definitely helpful. I did that. A number of other participants did that, just to kind of get used to the water temperature and make sure that the first time you're not putting your face in the water is once you get through the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for me as well, I will do that. I'll get my feet wet. I'll get my hands dip in and out and splash the water in the face because they're the places you're going to get that cold shock when you run in, you dive into the water. Entering the water, did you enter was it from a pontoon or was it via steps or how did you actually get in the water from the corral?
It's a beach entry. So there is a small sand bank on the lake there that you enter through. So very smooth entrance. starts in shallow water. You really have to wade for the first couple feet, and then you can get into a swim stroke.
Fantastic, excellent. And it is a rolling swim start as well. And we'll talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
was there, and at the time of the morning, was there much issue with the sun rising? Was the sun in your eyes? Would you recommend tinted goggles as well, or was the sun an issue?
Yeah, so I brought a pair of clear goggles and a pair of tinted goggles. I intended on using the clear ones going into it. The sun did come up a lot earlier than I thought it would. It had eventually come up before my group had started the rolling swim start. So I ended up switching to the tinted goggles. I definitely recommend that. Just given on the back portion of the swim, on the back leg, depending on which side you breathe from, you do have a tendency to look back into the sun. So it was helpful to have the tinted goggles. And I believe in our on the way in, it was already kind of behind you and above you, so it wasn't too much of a concern. But that early morning sun, it's pretty bright out there too, because was not an overcast day. It was, blue skies type of day.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay, cool. We'll move on to the transition. Is there anything else that springs to mind about, like we've covered, it'll be with that temperature, it's definitely going to be wetsuit legal. Tinted goggles as a plus point. The thermal cap, brilliant. Do take advantage of the climatization. Water's clear, just cold, and it's a beach start. Anything else that you remember? Oh, actually, getting out of the water. What was it? Was it onto a beach again, or
Yep,
okay, okay?
onto
And
the
there,
beach.
were the volunteers helping you out, or you're just coming on? Is it sandy beach or stony beach?
Sandy beach. There were not wetsuit strippers. It's a sandy beach into some grass. So soft landing. You're able to kind of get right out of the water and jog to T1.
Cool, excellent. All righty, excellent, cool. We'll talk a little bit about the rolling swim start for the guys who are new, but just in
Right.
terms of the cutoff times, it's a standard 70 minutes from when you enter the water until you get out of the water. So be aware of that. Um, and we'll move on to what we call the rolling swim start. Now, this is not La Quinta. This is just the standard overhead shot of a swim corral that Ironman use. And for those new to Ironman racing, Ironman used to do mass swim starts. And if you Google or YouTube the like Lanzarote or Nice, you saw everybody just all piling in like lemmings. Brilliantly impressive to watch, but scary as hell if you're a newbie. So what Ironman did was they brought in this system of a rolling or a seated swim start around 6 years ago, which means that when you turn up on the race day morning, you'll find what they call corrals or pens. And there'll be big yellow numbers that will go under 30 minutes, 30, 35 minutes, 35 to 40 minutes. And you put yourself in the corral estimated by your estimated swim time to cover that 1.9 kilometers. And this allows Ironman to let all the faster swimmers in, the fish as I like to call them, and it allows people to group together by roughly the same level and ability, which encourages drafting, as in swimming together as a little group, legal in the swim, not legal on the bike. We'll talk about that. So this is how it will work on race day, as in, as you can see, let's assume this is 30, 35-minute corral. And what happens is there's gates which you will be led into, and there will be volunteers literally holding out their arms like that. And every kind of 5 or 6 seconds, an audible beep will come from this little beepy machine, and then you'll enter the water. So these four guys have gone in already. I love this guy checking out his Garmin. And that's when you cross the timing mat. That's when your time starts, not when the first guys go in, I believe at 7 a.m. We'll talk about the timetable at the end. So, what does this mean? Top tip, seed yourself honestly, because if you think you're going to save time you think I'm kind of close to the 70 minutes, I'll put myself in at the start, it means I get extra time. It doesn't. It will actually make a mess of your day because what will happen is you will be swimming with swimmers who are 30-minute swimmers and they'll just go right over you. They will swim over you, not in a way to upset you or like to punish you, but they know you shouldn't be there and they'll unapologetically go over you. Don't put yourself in that situation. Put yourself in the right corral. And then what also will happen is the second benefit is you're swimming with if you're 2 minute per 100 swimmer in the pool, you're swimming roughly beside that the type of ability of that person. You can draft off them. Sit in their hip, you sit in their feet, and you get a bit of a dynamic, and you work together, and you actually make the swim easier. So, top tip here: please seed yourself. Honestly, don't think you're getting a benefit by putting yourself in a corral way above your level. You're not. If anything, maybe slightly above, you can try to chase people's feet, but not like a whole two corrals up. All right. We will move on from the unless anything else you want to add in about the swim start, Sean, does that marry up with your experience?
That does. I think something that pops to mind too. So I had placed myself in the 50-minute group, which ended up being pretty accurate. I finished the swim in 47 minutes. One thing I would add, a piece of advice, there is a significant time gap between that first pro start group and the groups in the 40s and 50s. So if you're warming up ahead of time, just keep in mind the amount of time that you're standing there on the beach in the cold. You'll probably need to start warming up again and at least keeping your body warm. That was something I didn't necessarily account for the first time. I think it was probably about 30 to 35 minutes between the first group and when my time group actually stepped up and started getting launched out of the corrals.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, very valid point, and it's a good call. Um, okay, so build in that warm up time in the amount of time you'll be standing before you actually get out of the water in the corral. Good point, mate. All right, we will move on to T1. It's a split transition, isn't that right? As in you have T1 and T2 at different
Yep.
locations,
Yes.
and it's a traditional transition. They don't use the blue and red bags as they do in full distance. Is that correct?
Blue and red bags. Yep.
They do use the blue and red bags, or they don't?
Yes, they do.
Okay, cool, excellent. I'm gonna have to slightly edit it. This we do have the blue and red bags in La Quinta, which means that you will have a need to actually set up. Talk us through the transition from the from the swim exit to the transition area. What is the distance on that? Is it a long run up? Is it a short run up?
It's a short run up. Like I mentioned, there's a sand beach coming out of the swim, and then you're running onto soft grass. So it's really a forgiving surface, and it's a short jog into T1.
And T1 is it in a car park? Is it in a field or what's the setup?
Yes, it's a parking lot. It's car park.
Okay, cool. And in terms of the like what did you do the day before? Did you walk the transition when you're checking in your bike and all the rest to make sure you knew where the swim exit was and then also where the bike mount line was, etc.?
Yeah, I walked all that. I walked from transition one to the swim start, where the exit from the swim is, back to T1, and then through the mountain line. Also taking note of where in T1 my bike was placed. I had used there was a really big standalone tree that I had used as an identifier, knowing I was right in front of that tree, because I know that can be a big stressor if you forget where your bike is in that sea of bikes.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all looks like very easy when you come out and you're walking it and go, oh, I'm definitely gonna remember this. But remember, you've come out of swim, there's lots of adrenaline
Yep.
going on, there's lots of people cheering, and there's lots of moving parts. It's very easy to what we call get race brain, and you sort of go, I just forget. And you can be running up and down the racks going, what number was it? So having an inanimate object is a really good strategy where you sort of go, okay, and walk it. As in, okay, I come out from the swim exit, I run up two racks, and then I'm midway down my tree there, and all the racks will be numbered, which will pick up when you register. That's where your bike will
Yep.
go, and just make sure you have everything sort of ready for that flow of your transition. Anything else particularly about transition that sticks in your mind?
Not really. Relatively typical T1.
And no wetsuit strippers, as you said. That's all DIY.
No, there were not. It was DIY.
Cool, excellent. All right, so a couple of tips there in the comments below about how to have a quick, smooth transition, including exactly the great tip Sean gave there about knowing what your identifier is, walking it, and also people have smartphones. Take pictures because you might be sort of sitting down when you won't sleep the night before and go like, "Is it where?" Okay, oh no, I'll take look at my picture. It's beside that's the number rack. It's one length of a rack down, and that's the tree I'm looking for. Tips here in the comments as well about how to get your wetsuit off like a pro, and check that out. Okay, and we'll move on. And by the way, let's give Sean a thumbs up for giving up his time and sharing his own personal experience on it. If you give the thumbs up in the video, we'll appreciate that. And if you want to have other transition or was it triathlon training or race review, that's where I specialize. Um, advice if you're doing Ironman California later on, or you're planning on doing Ironman Florida, or you're doing something in Europe next year, make sure you check out the channel and subscribe. I'm releasing race reviews at least once or twice a week, so this is the place to go. Okay, but we have now got on our bike. We have got past the mount line, which is the line which will be indicated by volunteers, which you cannot get on your bike until you've got the full length of your bike past it. And then we're onto this bike course, which is a one loop course. Do you want to talk us through it, Sean? What was your lasting memories? What's the road surface? Was it closed, fast, hilly? Talk us through it, mate.
It's a great bike course. It's very flat and fast. They're long desert roads. Immediately coming out of T1, really when you're closer to the lake, and then at the end, closer to the end of the bike is when you get nice long paved, almost highway type roads, clean asphalt, very smooth, very fast. But probably the thing that stuck out the most was once you get a little more to the south portion of the bike leg, you really start getting out into more of the suburban areas is when you start encountering more country roads. The road surface changes pretty quickly. It gets pretty bumpy pretty quickly. It's still a fast course because it is flat and there's the most turning you're doing is a 90-degree turn or a U-turn at times. But the road surface does get a little bit sketchy the farther out of the city you go. So I had I had a very stiff setup on my bike. I had a hard flat kit on the rear of my bike, and about halfway through, stuff started to kind of rattle around. Extra CO2 canisters, tire levers, and whatnot. Stuff started to rattle out and make a lot of noise in uh, my spare kit box. So something to consider there is things will kind of bump around just given the road surface. So I would definitely try to maybe this time I'll put it inside of a sock and put it in, or give it some sort of compression so it's not flying around. With that also, I this go around will probably be running some wider tires that are lower PSI. I think I was running 25s at a pretty high PSI, just given it's a very fast course. But I think there's some room there to sacrifice a little of that firmness for a little more comfort.
Okay, cool. And the roads are they closed roads? Are they completely closed, or are they junctions open, or what can people expect?
It's a mixture. Coming out of T1, they're closed. Once you get a little farther out into the suburbs, maybe they'll have a lane or two closed, but there is still some through traffic. The majority of the roads were closed and free of cars, though.
Okay. And in terms of, you mentioned there was some tight corners, but not that often. Like I can see a couple of here in the roundabouts. Is there anything else that of note? This looks a little bit unusual as well as that.
Yeah, so that's a cool part of the race. That is it's actually a private car racing community they have in Palm Springs. So that's a racetrack, like a car racetrack. So pretty cool. You go into this community, you sort of do a lap around the neighborhood, and they let you do a lap on the track. So obviously that's a pretty cornering intensive portion, but that's kind of a nice little halfway point morale booster. You get to ride your bike or on a racetrack, which is pretty cool. And then it's back out to the flat roads.
Fantastic. And from the sounds of it, it's definitely a TT bike course if you have it. It looks flat and fast. And any
Yeah.
wind to be concerned with, as in like if you're planning to do deep sectioned wheels or disc wheels, what's your thoughts on that?
No, I've got deep section wheels on my bike. It was fine. There's really nothing more than an occasional breeze. I didn't have any experience with wind issues.
Fantastic. Cool. No, it sounds like it's a fast little course. Have a look at the profile of the map here as well. It it looks like it's net decent, and then you're still coming up here, but even the scale of these maps always make me laugh. As in, like that looks like you're coming down and you're gonna have to be climbing a significant amount. But if you look at this scale here, it's like 100 feet over that, and that's so yeah. Any hills of note at all, Sean? Or
No hills, the occasional slight incline, but definitely not a climbing course.
fantastic. Okay,
It's
cool,
just
excellent.
all about speed.
Absolutely. Getting down. And again, when these sort of courses, it's getting down and being aero as much as possible, maximizing and get into a big ring and get in a good solid cadence. And keeping on top of your nutrition, which we'll talk about in a second. Anything else you remember of the course before we turn it up and we go to our a new T2? Anything else on the bike?
That's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Cool. All right. Your cutoff time for the bike and your swim, your T1 and your bike time is 5 hours 30. But again, as Sean was saying, if you was it get down in those aero bars, you was it maximize your power, and you adjust was it put up a big ring, you'll have no problem. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to get that out of the way about aid stations. Um, this is my bugbear, and again, I always have a little rant here. First thing, this is what a standard Ironman a 70.3 aid station looks like. Don't worry, it's not this narrow, but it is roughly around 300 to 400 meters wide. There are tables set up with this, and there are volunteers handing out um various items. As you can see, there's water bottles, mortal hydration, food, which is bananas and bars, mortal again, Morton gels, ESO and mortal hydration, and water. But the first thing I really have to hammer home is this point: bottle toss, and was it last chance trash or rubbish as we call it in Europe. This is the only place on the course where you can chuck your empty bottles, your banana peels, your gel wrappers, whatever, between these two locations, because that means that Ironman can come along and clean it all up, and then we actually just leave no footprint on La Quinta after we leave. And if you do not obey that, you will get disqualified. So please, please, please obey that rule. It is key. But aid stations are two things as well: the high risk and the high reward, especially at 70.3 racing, because as I just correctly pointed out there, there's the only place people can throw things, right? They can throw empty bottles, gel. So therefore, there's debris coming around. There's bottles being dropped and knocked off people's hands. There's cyclists moving in and out. There's volunteers stepping out to hand over bottles. Lots of moving parts. And if you're not aware and you don't communicate to your fellow riders and also the volunteers, this is a place where your race could come to an abrupt stop, because I've seen it before in races. Guys suddenly go, "Oh, there's an aid station to pull straight across. Don't tell anyone," and they take out a racer who's not stopping and is flying by. Communicate, slow down, know what you're going to get, eye contact with a volunteer, and also have practiced picking, grabbing a bottle, grabbing a food with one hand, and securing it and moving out. So high risk because there's lots of moving parts. High reward because you need the fuel, you need the hydration to make sure you have a great race. And myself and Sean were talking about this beforehand. You're fueling on the bike, not only for the bike, but for the half marathon that's coming up. So know your nutrition strategy and build aid stations in there. So therefore know how they work. And in that, anything you want to add on the aid stations on the course, Sean? Can you remember what flavor mortal hydration was going on, or do you drink that stuff, or what was it for you like?
Yeah, it was lemon lime. I drink a lot of those electrolytes. This was the order the aid station was in. They do a good job with signage telling you when aid stations are occurring too, so you have plenty of time on these long straights to get to the right, slow down, and set up your transition through the aid stations here. Um, I think that it is a good tip to be a little more vigilant at the beginning where the bottle tosses. They have large large areas where people throw waters, but bottles will roll back into the road or stuff kind of pops out from the bottle toss area. So definitely a good idea to uh, not run into one of those things while you're on the bike.
Yeah, it's just been switched on, isn't it? Like again, it looks like it's a course where you probably are going to be down on your tri bars a lot, and you're going to be looking at your bike computer and look, it just kind of almost blinkered. But these points, it's like even if you're not using an aid station, as you correctly said, a bottle will have dropped and it'll roll out into the middle of the road. So just be switched on and therefore know what the aid stations are on the course. Okay, cool. And by the way, don't freak out about if you've never used an aid station. There's a video in the comments below that talks through do's and don'ts and what you need to practice. Spoiler alert, it's actually just getting a friend, a partner, to just hold out a bottle and you slow down, grab it, and make sure you secure it into your bottle cage or fill it up and then toss it if you're using the front hydration system. The first couple of times you'll knock it out of hand and a little bit of a giggle, but the third, fourth, you'll have nailed it down. You'll know exactly what type of speed you can slow down to. You'll know exactly what it feels like to kind of be controlling the bike with one hand on one handlebar. And then, so check it out. Alrighty, now we are back to well, we're in a different T2. And were there bike catchers or would you have to rack your own bike?
Rack your own bike.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. Um, what else? What was the transition setup? Was that in another car park, or what was the setup there? Or
It was in a grass field. It's a nice transition. It's nice to get the soft grass coming off the bike. It's a much larger area than transition one, so a little bit harder to pinpoint where your number is on the racks. So definitely something you need to spend some time the day before walking through and sort of remembering because it's a pretty open field. There's not much around it that you can use as a wayfinder, but a comfortable transition in that it's nice soft grass for once you're off the bike running barefoot.
cool. And what are you dropping off in transition to the day before? Are you dropping off your red bag? Is that how it works?
Run bag, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And just on that, by the way, and again, just to reiterate, this is an unusual 70.3 because it's a split transition. They will use a bike bag, which is when you transition from swim to bike, and that's where you put your wetsuit and you take your helmet out of, etc. But you'll also need to do logistics where you drop off your run bag in T2, which is the separate location. And that you will have your runners in there, your sunglasses, your visor, or whatever else you're going to get on that you want. If you might have another run top you want to use, so there's lots of things to. I'll put the video in the comments below where it shows what goes in those blue and red bags, and it'll help you pack accordingly. But back to Sean's point, it's key again that when you're setting yourself up for the transition two, that you try to find something like, as you said, a wayfinder. I've never heard that phrase before. I like that. But you get some way that you know which direction you're going to coming in the bike entry point, and what way to run, and you'll go to your numbered rack, and that's where you have to rack your bike. And that's, by the way, that's the only time you can take your helmet off, or else you get a penalty. Map that out, walk it a couple of times, even again, use pictures, take a little video that you can look at it, go like, oh yeah, I come in, I get to the dismount line, I have to stop entirely before I get off the bike, and then I have to run in, take a right, two racks up, one halfway down. Ideally, if there's a landmark or a wayfinder, as Sean says, use that, but make sure you know your ins and outs and landmarks are some way of actually knowing where you're going because this is where people will get confused. Um, for me as well, T1 takes a little bit more time. It's a little bit more involved getting out of the wetsuit, getting, was it your helmet on, getting your bike shoes on, etc. T2, we have a phrase in the squad that nothing good happens in T2. The minute you have your new socks on, if you're going to use them, and drop and your runners, you start moving because you can walk to the run exit and you can be taking the gel, you can be putting a sun cap on, you can be putting your sunglasses. The only thing you need are your runners on. So don't dilly dally and get off you go. Um, Actually, Sean, are you wearing socks on both the bike and the run, and you change your socks? Or how do you find it?
I don't wear socks on the bike, so I'm putting on a clean pair of socks before the run.
Cool. Which is great because that's where you're more likely going to get a blister. So I
Yeah.
agree with that strategy. I actually do dry socks for both the bike and the run. Takes a little bit more time, but I'm very precious about my feet. Any other tips that you've picked up in your sprint, Olympic, and last year from a T2 point of view? Anything else you'd hand out to someone else watching the video for the first time?
In T2 at this race, your run bag is going to be sitting out in the sun for a couple of hours. So like, be mindful of any sorts of creams, bombs, or even gels that you have in there. I had some Cliff Blocks in there that I was gonna bring with me for the run, and they just got very very soft and almost melted together. So the solid stuff that will not melt away, and even some of the gels. Are probably the way to do it. But like I said, they will be kind of warm. So I don't know if you can, put a towel over inside the bag to give yourself a little bit of shade with your stuff, but just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's a good point because you're dropping us off the night before. So like, for me personally, I always try to don't have anything new in the bag on the run bag food wise because I tend to treat Ironman's aid station like a buffet. I'll try to eat as much as possible then because I paid them such a large fee to enter. And I try to make my money's back, which I think I need to work out. I need to eat around 300 Morton gels, which I've not succeeded in any race yet. But no, I agree with you. That's a great tip, very specific to La Quinta. Okay, there's other tips as well about how to do a quick and fast transition out of was it for T2, but again, as we say, nothing good happens in T2. Get your ass moving, get out in that run. Every step you make is closer to the finish line and a nice cold beer. Right, on to the run. It looks a pretty involved course. Do you want to talk us a little bit through the run course here, Sean?
Yeah. Firstly, the environment. This is really when I thought the race kind of starts to get fun. The majority of the people watching and cheering you on are based around the run course. The bike, you end up going way out into the desert, and it's really just you and the other athletes going down the road. But once you get back here towards the tennis gardens, which is sort of the central point in the center stadium, that's when you get a little more involvement from the community, which is nice because at that point you're, looking for a moral boost and something to kind of get you through the last leg, anyways. It's a very involved run, so it's long, flat pavement to start coming out of T2. Again, you're running those long, flat roads. The long bit at the bottom here is a nice downhill going out from the stadium. So it's 2 laps. So you have a nice long downhill to start the run, uh, which feels good. And then you head into the golf course, and basically you end up running the cart path of the golf course all the way through. So it's pretty cool. It's very involved. It's nice scenery. It's concrete cart paths with some grass areas. So definitely a lot of stuff to look at and kind of distract yourself with. What I will say is there was a lot more up and down than I had anticipated. So definitely if you can implement some sort of hill training into those long runs, that helps because by the time you're running through that the second time on lap 2,
Yeah, you're
some of those short hills can become pretty difficult given the incline of them. You can see it on the graph down there that does go up and down pretty significantly, especially on the bottom portion. That nice long downhill on the way out becomes a nice long uphill on the way in, which really kicks your butt in the end. But definitely more of a more elevation changes than the bike. I mean, it's not even really close.
no, absolutely. Yeah, and as you said, like it's if you were running this course on a standalone half marathon, you probably wouldn't feel them as much. But as you said, you're coming off the back of a 90K bike and all the rest, and it's a flat bike, so you've been constant cadence and you've been in a high turnover. So yeah, these guys will sting a fair bit, and just bear that in mind. And again, as you said, It's almost that what goes up must come down, or the other way around. And the when you're getting the joy of the downhill, and then you have to fight your way back up that hill. 2 lap course, surface sounds good. Anything else you remember from the? Did they close the golf course? Is completely closed then, I presume, for the day. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I would say the golfers love us. Anything else you remember from? I have images of Happy Gilmore lads shooting golf balls at us. Um, uh, Anything else that you remember specifically from the run course that might help out newbies?
There's yeah, like I said, it's a the golf course portion. It's a beautiful run. There's lots to look at. There's a bit of humor in it too because it's attached to a large resort, and you can actually see down to their large pool area where everyone's laying out, relaxing, having some drinks, and then you're here running this golf course. So it's a nice little laughable moment. Like, how did I get myself into this? But definitely a lot to distract yourself with.
It's a questioning life choices moment, I think you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. And there's also plenty of aid stations, as you can
Yeah.
see. Like I think the aid stations are roughly around every kind of mile or so, which is standard for Ironman. Um, for me, I always tell my guys, do not miss an aid station, especially in a half Ironman, because either you're using it to top up those fuel levels by taking on some of again, uh, the bananas, salty snacks, the energy bars, or is if the heat's rising, you're using it for heat management purposes, as in you're kind of taking on water to kind of keep yourself in the ESO, because you'll be sweating out all your electrolytes and a little bit of water down the back and then the front of your tri suit. What was the weather like when you were running on the course at this stage? Was it hot or was it still chilly or what was it like?
It it was warm by that time. So the aid stations also had ice at the end. That was a great move. Every aid station, I'd take some of that, throw it down my tri suit, and then throw some in my hat and put it back on my head. That definitely helped with temperature control.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a big fan of that. And also a top tip, because I got given out to for using that tip in one video, and some goes, no, no, that hurts your head. A South African coach gave me a great tip. He goes, when you're coming and you actually keep it in your red bag, it's a Ziploc bag. And what you can do then is rather than you can, as you go along, you scoop up some of the ice in the Ziploc bag and you put it down the front or the back of your tri suit. And it means the ice is there and it melts as you go along and it kind of keeps it in the
Mm,
nice location. And then when you come to the next aid station when it's all melted, you can chuck that out and fill up with ice again. So there you go, free coaching tip.
mobile
Um,
ice pack.
yeah, a little Ziploc bag. It doesn't have to be. It'll just and again, and it's something that you can have in the back of your tri-suit pocket and all the rest. And it can be nice and handy. Cool, excellent. Alrighty. And in terms of just pacing the run, myself and actually Sean were having this chat beforehand. For me, as I said, I treat the half Ironman distance, but in almost like 3 laps of 7K. The first 7K, you're almost hold back because you're feeling good. You're sort of going up, swims nailed, bikes nailed, and there's a danger that you almost shoot off. And especially on this course, as you said, but this little downhill, you're in danger of overcooking it too quick, almost find that you're holding yourself back because then you want to build into the second and third kind of 7K lap. Because it's better to build into it and finish strong. The Again, that's when you're going to be hitting your kind of race pace for sure from around 8K onwards and trying to push it through. The last 5, 6 kilometers, there's no way around it. It does suck. Like because if you raced hard, you'll be feeling the legs. Do keep on top of your nutrition. Do keep on top of your heat management, and very much try to push to the line. At that stage, you're dipping into all your mental tricks, as in you're looking at your visualization. You're thinking about why am I doing this? Um, was it you're thinking about any mantras you have, as in like these are strong, powerful statements that kind of get you back into the zone. You're looking at some guy in front of you, and you go like, I'm just going to catch him. And anything you can in the last 5 kilometers that keeps you actually just moving at the same pace. You got to dig into that. Was it bag of tricks for the end? Alrighty. Anything else on run course before we talk a little bit about the timetable?
That's it.
Fantastic. It's a standard kind of cut-off time for the Lulu for 70.3, the swim, T1, bike, T2, and run. It is it's 8.5 hours to get it done. Alrighty, this is the finish line. Looks pretty cool, as in I always like a little bit of palm trees in my finish line. Good finish line. Enjoy. Was it lots of crowds? What's your memories of it, Sean?
Yeah, it's a really cool finish line. You finish right back at the stadium, and you've got a long sort of run in with people hanging over the boards there, as you can see in the photo, and a nice picturesque finish with the palm trees. Good for photos.
Absolutely. That's going to be a genius finish picture. And by the way, on that, now here's a top tip. What I see a lot of people doing, they come over the finish line and they're straight down and they're looking at the garment trying to, don't do that, as in you ruin your picture. Get
Yep.
over the finish line. This is the picture you're going to get of your first 70.3 finish or a PB finish and rest, and you want to have, punch in the air, doing something. Don't worry about stopping the garment afterwards. If it's 10, 15 seconds off, it doesn't matter. You'll get the splits from Ironman anyhow. So make sure you're looking, banging the camera. And also, if it's your first one and you're not too worried about time, make sure like let's if there's people on the red carpet in front of you or behind you, let them go. If you wanted to just you in the picture, you can time it that way. And the picture's cool. Make sure you get a good picture. I have pictures from all of my Ironman all over my was it office and my man cave. It drives my missus mad. You're the only person that has so many pictures of yourself. I said, look, if you're lucky, maybe I'll put up a picture of us the odd time if we race together. Alrighty. Okay. So some key event details. The registration will open up. And I took this from last year's was it athlete guide and event schedule. So this video is meant to complement the event guide, the athlete guide and event schedule and the race briefing. It's not meant to substitute. So make sure you check out again because things can happen in Ironman last minute. They like with weather, weird stuff that can happen. So please do check that out. Don't take this as gospel. Just make sure, and it should be part of your planning. But last year, then Friday, they had registration on Friday from 2 until 7. There was an athlete briefing at 3 and 5. The registration's also available from 9 till 4. Me personally, I like to get the registration out of the way. And top tip, the way that Ironman register now, they give you numbers as you come along. So they print out your numbers. So if you are coming with your club mates and you want to all be in together in transition, well, T1 anyhow. So like just go together so that you'll get number 101, 102, 103, 104. And that means you will all be together. So make sure you take advantage of that. Athlete briefing available at 3 p.m. Bike drop off and timing chip pickup is between 10 and 5. Now, again, check out the athlete guide and exactly the direction. Like, how did it work for yourself, Sean, in terms of dropping off your red bag versus your bike and your blue bag? How did that work?
It takes a lot of time just given the split transition nature of the race. So definitely need to plan ahead. I tried to go in the earlier portion of all these time windows just to avoid some of the traffic and crowds. But there is there's a lot to consider given the start of the race is about it's about a 20 to 30-minute drive from the finish. So there's definitely some planning you have to do ahead of time to plan out when you're going to get to T1 to drop your bike off and your bike bag, and then making sure that you have everything in there because you're not going to see that again until you come out of the water, and then driving 20 to 30 minutes back to T2 to set up your run stuff. So like I said, I tried to do the registration and briefing on the Friday. And then I just left Saturday open to handle the transition bags.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And again, it is a major consider with a split transition. Like that's why they don't tend not to have these too many. But it sounds like a genius way. So it's a little bit of discomfort, but a little bit of extra logistical planning. But again, part of the fun and games of La Quinta. Okay, transition.
Like you said, I took photos of the transition bags that I had left behind to mentally reassure myself I had included everything in there. And if there was anything last minute that I might have forgotten, thankfully I didn't. But just a little peace of mind tip: just take photos of your stuff laid out with the transition bag, so you know. Because like I said, you can't run back to the race site to go throw something. Like once they're there, they're there.
Yeah, 100%. As a genius tip, as in because, and like you'll be lying down in bed, you go, my sunglasses, my sunglasses. And you go like, hang on, scroll back. There they are. Sunglasses are in the right bag. I can fall asleep. But even if it does go wrong, you don't have access to it. So like, yeah, no time. So with these type of split transitions, taking your time, a bit of ordering, linking to the logics, and packing, taking those photographs as well. Great tip. I love it. All right, transition opens at quarter to five, and then the age group start. We'll start at 10 past 7. I believe they have another pro field as well. That's why it's a little bit later than others, which is cool. I think that's one of the cool things of Ironman. You actually get to race the exact same course, the exact same experience as like the likes of Cat Matthews, Lionel Sanders, etc. So that is pretty cool. But okay, so that's again the course. What I will, any last minute tips you want to share with first timers or nervous newbies, Sean?
I think that's it. The athlete guide was super helpful, especially for a first timer. Reading through that, I'd actually printed it out and just had a hard copy of it with me, just to read some of the information on the course, some tips, and then the scheduling. So just having that to guide yourself takes a lot of the stress of planning off your plate.
Fantastic. And watching this video too and taking a lot of your good tips
Yes.
as well. That's the other thing that people need to do. Alrighty. Okay, so with that, I'm just going to take a quick 30 seconds. Sean, thank you very much for your time, your knowledge on this. I very much appreciate you planning for your own race. So it's great that you're willing to share with the triathlon community. It's been fabulous talking to you. Anything else? Was it if you wish you had one piece of advice before last year's race, what would it be? If someone whispered in your ear and you would have thought that. Anything else?
You mentioned it slightly. The Garmin at the finish line in my Olympic races before this one, I was looking down and and I swore to myself I would never do that again. So, I mean, that's the fun part of the race. You got to get your photo at the finish line with your time. So make sure you enjoy that.
Fantastic. Listen, and by the way, from myself, thanks again and best of luck this year. We hope you get a good PB and we're looking forward to seeing how you get on.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me.